Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and I want to take a look at one of the members of the greatest team ever assembled, and that is the team that Jesus Christ put together over 2,000 years ago. Man, I love sports teams. Been a lifelong suffering Cincinnati Reds baseball fan, a Dallas Cowboys football fan, and back in the 70s when I was a little boy in the mid-70s, the Reds had the Big Red Machine. They won back-to-back World Series, 75 and 76. That's the first 1976. Those are the first baseball games, that team that I can remember as a little boy, and been a lifelong suffering fan ever since. And Dallas Cowboys, their first Super Bowl, seeing them in the 70s also. And I've been loyal since then. Can't believe it now. That's been 50 years of being a lifelong suffering Reds and Cowboys fans. And they've had some great teams, but they've had a lot of teams that were not so good. But you know why Jesus' team's the greatest team ever? 2,000 years later, we're still talking about them. And we took a little break last week and talked about playing hurt. But I want to get back to Jesus' team, and we're going to look today at Bartholomew, or as he's known in the book of John, Daniel. Just in case maybe you're like, who are those 12 guys that comprised of Jesus' team? And some of them will be real familiar, but others, if you got put on a talk show, and had a chance to win $1 million, you might not be able to name some of these guys. So let's take a look at Mark chapter 3, verses 13 and 19. It says, "Afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain, and he called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to Jesus. Then he appointed 12 of them and called them his apostles. They were to accompany Jesus, and he would send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons. These are the 12 that he chose: Simon, whom he named Peter, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them the sons of thunder, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, who we're going to talk about today, Matthew, Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed Jesus." So far, over the past 6 weeks, we've looked at Andrew, we've looked at James and John, and we've looked at Philip. And then today we're going to look at Bartholomew, or Nathaniel, as he's named in the book of John. Philip's closest companion actually was Nathaniel, and they are listed in all 4 of the list of disciples in the first 4 books of the New Testament, the Gospels as we call them: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they are always grouped together on all of those lists. And Bartholomew is actually a Hebrew name, a Hebrew last name meaning the son of Ptolemy. Nathaniel means God is given, so he is Nathaniel, son of Ptolemy, or Nathaniel bar Ptolemy. Nathaniel came from a small town of Cana in Galilee, the place where Jesus did his first miracle, the changing of water into wine. Friends, a lot of times people say, I don't want to be a follower of Jesus because, I just got to follow a bunch of rules. And friends, I want to remind you that Christianity is so much more than a religion with rules. It is a relationship with Jesus, a personal relationship with God through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. But the other thing I think sometimes that we forget, Jesus obviously liked to have fun because we know that God's a God of details. And for Jesus' first miracle, he performed this miracle at a wedding when he turned the water into wine. Or some people kid that if he lived in Kentucky, he would turn the water into bourbon. I know that's a bad joke. Forgive me, okay? But the fact of the matter is, weddings were a big deal back then, okay? It wasn't like today where you go to the wedding, then you go to the reception, and, 3-4 hours at most, it's over. Then this thing would last for days because people usually traveled a long way, and it wasn't like now where you could just jump on an airplane and be back, easily anywhere in the country in 24 hours. It was a big deal. It lasted for several days, sometimes even as much as a week. So I think it's significant that Jesus did his first miracle at a wedding, and weddings are a lot of fun and a time of celebration. So I want to encourage you today, if you're a follower of Jesus, don't look like you've been drinking a glass of prune juice. Smile. Man, be happy. Jesus wants you to be happy. He liked to have fun. It's one of the things I love about The Chosen. Can't believe the fourth season is now out. And, like everything, it's not perfect, okay? People like to critique it, but it's the best thing that I've seen that just kind of makes Jesus and the disciples look like real normal people like you and like me. And just will really encourage you and just maybe encourage you to check that out if you're looking for something good to watch. But going back to Bartholomew, or Nathaniel, as he was also called, Cana was very close to Jesus' own hometown of Nazareth, where Nathaniel grew up. And Philip, after being sought out by Jesus, immediately brought Nathaniel to meet Jesus. The two were obviously good friends because in the list of 12 that we talked about earlier in the four Gospels, their names are linked, as they are also in the earliest church histories. Apparently, they were inseparable friends throughout the years with their journey with Jesus. We find these two always side by side, not as brothers, but as close companions. Philip knew Nathanael would be interested in the news that the long-awaited Messiah had finally been identified. In fact, Philip couldn't wait to share the news with his friend. Philip spoke of Jesus as the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies because he knew that would pique Nathanael's interest. Nathanael, as an eager student of the Scriptures, was already a seeker after divine truth. It appears that all the disciples were, with the exception of Jesus Iscariot. They were sincere in their love for God and desire to receive the Messiah. They were very different from the religious leaders who were characterized by hypocrisy and false religion. The disciples were the real thing. Friends, I want to pause here for a moment. We need to be the real thing. And what I mean by that is, yes, we need to honor God with our one and only lives, but we have to be careful being hypocrites. You've heard quite often, if you talk to a waiter or waitress that works regularly, what's their least favorite shift? And they'll say lunchtime on Sundays, because a lot of it's the church crowd. And not only are they very demanding, but quite often they say they don't tip well. And friends, what an insult to God if you just come out of worshiping Jesus at your church service, then go to a restaurant and are very demanding, and then on top of that, you're cheap. So I know I'm stepping on some toes today, and normally I'm very upbeat and positive and a grace-filled guy, but I feel like I need to speak the truth in love to somebody listening or watching on our YouTube channel, okay, is that, we're hypocritical when we do that. We come right out of church and we're demanding and we're cheap. And so I want to encourage you, to really think about that, especially those of you that are bold enough to pray in public and over your meal, which I really would encourage you to do. I'm still doing that, and I can't tell you how many times somebody later will come up to me in a restaurant and just say, hey, or the waiter or waitress say, that was so refreshing to see somebody praying over their food. Because friends, we know all good things come from the Lord, right? Also, we know there's people that go hungry in this world, and we're fortunate to easily have 3 meals a day here in the United States. But there are even people in the United States that don't have access to that. And so if you've got a meal and can afford it at a restaurant, I don't care if I'm eating at McDonald's, I'll still thank the Lord for it. Because one, he's my protector and provider. And two, Jesus modeled it. Remember when they fed the 5,000 with the 2 little fish and the 5 little mini loaves of bread? Jesus, he looked up to heaven, to God, and gave thanks and blessed the food. And friends, I want to be like Jesus in any way that I can. And that's one simple way that I can do that, by giving God thanks for the food that he has provided. Well, let's take a look at John chapter 1, verses 43 through 51, if you've got your Bible. And this is where Nathaniel, or Bartholomew, hears and meets Jesus for the very first time. It says in John chapter 1, verse 43, the next day Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, hey, come follow me. Philip was from Bethsaida, Andrew and Peter's hometown. Philip went to look for Nathanael and told him, we have found the very person Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth. Nathanael explained, Nazareth, exclaimed Nathaniel. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Come and see for yourself, Philip replied. As they approached, Jesus said, now here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity. Friends, wouldn't we want that said of us? That, hey, here is a genuine son of mine, a woman or a man, a person of complete integrity. I love what Nathaniel responded. He said to Jesus, Nathaniel said, how do you know about me? Jesus replied, I could see you under the fig tree before Philip found you. Then Nathanael exclaimed, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel. Jesus asked him, Nathanael, do you believe this just because I told you I had seen you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than this. Then Jesus said, I'll tell you the truth. You will see all of heaven open and the angels of God going up and down on the Son of Man, the one who is the stairway between heaven and earth. You know, friends, there must have been a certain amount of surprise in the voice of Philip, like, you'll never believe this, but Jesus, the son of Joseph, that carpenter guy from Nazareth, he is the Messiah. And Nathanael responded there in verse 48, can anything good come out of Nazareth? That was not a rational or biblical objection. It was based on emotion and prejudice. Nathanael had contempt for the whole town of Nazareth, but his own town wasn't anything great either. His remark probably reflects of the ongoing rivalry between Cana and Nazareth. Nazareth was a rough town. Its culture was very simple and uneducated, and 2,000 years later, it still is like that today. It's not a particularly lovely place. The Judeans from the south looked down on all the Galileans from the north, but even the Galileans looked down on the Nazarenes. Nathanael, though he came from an even more lowly village, was simply echoing the Galileans' general bad attitude about Nazareth. It's the same kind of pride that might lead someone from Lexington to make fun of people from Winchester or Nicholasville. But you know, friends, all kidding aside, okay, friends, prejudice is ugly. Generalizations based on feelings of superiority, not on fact, are very harmful. Prejudice cuts a lot of people off from the truth, and much of the nation of Israel rejected their Messiah, Jesus, because of prejudice. They did not believe their Messiah should come out of Nazareth. This happened even in Jesus' hometown. They put down Jesus as the lowly carpenter's son named Joseph, and were so filled with prejudice against Jesus, they actually tried to throw him off a cliff after just one sermon. I mean, these are people in his own town. So friends, if you feel like you're struggling being criticized and people not, showing you the love, so to speak, and, these are my people, friends, Jesus understands. It happened to him over 2,000 years ago, and he was the Son of God. So don't be surprised when you're persecuted, when you're trying to model and be like Jesus. But it's a good thing when people do that, because Jesus warned us that it would happen. And if we want to be like Jesus, sometimes we will be persecuted. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we'll continue looking at Bartholomew or Nathaniel, and we'll look at the effects of what prejudice can have on our hearts and our minds. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow. My name's Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.